Can't believe that I'm back yet again. I don't know what's happening today, but it's just working out to be able to go over a lot of this stuff. So, we're going to be looking at chapter 5 very quickly. As you can see on the screen, I'm giving you an example of what your double entry journals could look like. So, let's start page 41, and towards the bottom of the page, Dill was in hearty agreement with this plan of action. Dill was becoming something of a trial anyway, following Jem about. He had asked me earlier in the summer to marry him, then he promptly forgot about it. He staked me out, marked as his property, said I was the only girl he would ever love, then he neglected me. I beat him up twice, but it did no good. He only grew closer to Jem. What we have here is a really cute scene of a couple of little kids. Scout's probably about 6 years old at this time. Dill might be 8 or so. And they're talking about getting married. And like, it's just one of these cute things that kids do that completely is nothing to do with love or romance or anything. They're just friends. Dill thinks that Scout is special, but then he wants to go play with the boys. And I love that Scout, says she even beat him up. So as you can see here on the document, on the left side, I've got the text, and on the right side, I have my explanation of that. That's what your double entry journal should look like. You find a passage that means something, then you talk about why that's important, just like I just now did. So I told you that with Scout, the reason why her being 6 years old and her sweetness and her innocence is important, because when she looks at the world, she doesn't fully get it. If a grown person says, I want to marry you, that has major implications. If a 6-year-old says, I want to marry you, well, that's not really probably going to happen. So that's an important key to pay attention to, because it highlights her innocence and how she doesn't really understand what's going on. All right. Most of this chapter has to do with Scout talking with Miss Maudie, their neighbor from across the street. And Scout asks Miss Maudie about Boo Radley, and Miss Maudie says, don't call him that. His name is Arthur. And Scout doesn't get it. Miss Maudie keeps trying to change the conversation, and Scout keeps bringing it back. Well, what about Boo? Well, what about Boo? And so we get this picture on these pages, 43, 44, and 45. Really, it's kind of sad that I think Miss Maudie even says it. Top of page 46, Miss Maudie shook her head. If he's not crazy by now, he should be. The things that happen to people we never really know. What happens in houses behind closed doors. What secrets. And then she kind of stops and Scout cuts her off there. And basically, when you read these pages, you might start to realize that Scout doesn't get the full picture. Just like she doesn't understand marriage, she doesn't really know what happened with Arthur Boo Radley. Why? Did he really stab his father in the leg with scissors? Did he really haunt the neighborhood at night? Are those real stories, or are they just scary stories that kids make up and tell to one another? Were the walnuts really poisoned? So all of these kinds of things are coming to play, and so you have to try and look at this both from Miss Maudie's perspective as an adult and from Scout's perspective as a child. All right, that takes me back to my next passage on page 45 in the middle of the page. Miss Maudie laughed and said, I wasn't talking about your father. What I meant was, if Atticus Finch drank until he was drunk, he wouldn't be as hard as some men are at their best. They're just some kind of men who are so busy worrying about the next world, they've never learned to live in this one. And you can look down the street and see the results. So what we get here is the suggestion that Arthur Radley's dad was such a crazy, fundamentalist religious person that he would rather lock the doors and ignore the world than live in the world, despite the fact that sin might be a part of the world. But really, I think this passage says a lot more about Atticus and how what she is saying is that if Atticus had any vices, if he showed the worst part of humanity, that's still better than a lot of other people. Which tells you what kind of person Atticus is. Really raises the bar for Atticus being a person. All right. Page 47, we see this awesome little thing where they catch Dill in his lie. She says about like your daddy's beard, and my daddy doesn't have a beard, but oops. So that takes you back to both page 36 and page 8, where Dill's talked about his parents. So look that up. All right, and then the chapter ends with Jem and Dill trying to put a note. They got it on this little fishing line. They're trying to drop the note into Arthur Radley's window, Boo Radley's window. Scout comes up and says, "You guys shouldn't do that." And they go, "Shh, leave us alone. You go look." And then Atticus comes around the corner, and Atticus says, "What are you guys doing?" And Atticus says, "Leave the poor man alone." And that pretty much takes you up through the end of the chapter. So I hope that helps. I hope taking a look at what your double entry journal should look like. Specifically, what I want you to notice is that my passages are rather short and my explanation is longer, because what I really care about, you guys, is your explanations. I can read the story. I want to see you explain the text, show what it means, show what you think about it. So find sentences that are interesting or fun. Maybe something made you laugh. Maybe something made you cry. Maybe you noticed a thematic issue. All of those things you could write about. Okay, so look at the text, explain what you think it means. That's how you become a good reader. All right, that's all for now. Have a good night. If I can figure out how to turn this off. Let's try this. Maybe. Oh, hey! Try that. All right, let's turn it off. There we go. Bye now.